Hello everyone, this is Jay Tomar and I'm joined by Leslie Pro and we're going to be commentating a PK Scramble race. How are you doing, Leslie Pro?
Doing well. Good evening, everyone. Now, this particular Earthbound Randomizer is the creation of Jay Tomar. So, how about we go over what's going on?
Hey, that's me. Alright, so this is a key item randomizer. If you're familiar with Link to the Past randomizer or um, the Final Fantasy IV pre-Enterprise randomizer, it's more like those than it is like Ancient Cave, which I believe was showcased yesterday. So what that means is that all of the items in the game all the key items in the game have been moved to random locations. But first we're going to be looking at a random teleport. So Raiko Rider is talking to Buzz Buzz. Buzz Buzz is a plot thing. A lot of the plot things have been replaced with a thing that gives you a random PSI or teleport. I think that was a teleport to Dalam. It's hard to read when people are going fast. And those are going to be opening up the seed as they go. But the thing that is easier to explain is up at the top of this mountain, there's where the meteorite piece would normally be. There'll be a random key item. It could actually be the meteorite piece. It could be Frankel badge. It could be really anything. So what these runners are going to be doing is trying to figure out some route through this seed that'll get them to Gygus and then beat the game like normal. Raiko Rider is going to Liar Exaggerate's house. This is another one of the random teleports that's in the game. This is the weirdest one in the game. The Mani Mani statue in here that everyone forgets about after their first run is a PK check, which means it has a random teleport. The choice of having it's just kind of a weird choice to teleport up here is because there just need to be more options leaving on it to make the randomizer sufficiently random. So you can see Pro Pieces in Dalam, that was the teleport that they got from Buzz Buzz, and Raiko Rider just picked up a teleport to Winters from the statue. Probably going to be heading up to the meteorite and picking up his first key item. Meanwhile, since Propice went to Dalam, there is a kid check there, so the kid join locations are randomized. Also, Raiko Rider's item he picked up was the jar of fly honey, which, as you may recall, is not what is actually there normally. So, over where you might expect to find Pooh, Propice found a Jeff. Jeff actually starts with a key item. It would be the bad key machine in Vanilla. It's also just very handy to have an extra kid because it's more firepower and it's especially more inventory space.
Especially more firepower with some of what Jeff can utilize. By the way, there was an item in Jeff's inventory I did not recognize. That was a quartz crystal.
A quartz crystal. So, there are many flags in this randomizer, as you expect from randomizers these days. One of them is called Extended PSI Shuffle. So, what that does is, in addition to shuffling all the PSI around between the kids who can use PSI, oh, there's a Franklin badge in the Shyness Book slot. In addition to shuffling around the PSI the way that you'd expect, it shuffles the effects of Jeff's usable equipment. So, the bottle rocket, in this case, has been replaced with something that does the PSI Rockin' effect. And whatever PSI Rockin' is will be something else, we don't know yet. Quartz Crystal is the biggest stretch of all of the changed item names. It's hard to come up with a reason why Jeff is using disposable Jeff-only waves of PSI. I was thinking he's like taking a healing crystal and detonating it. I don't know.
There was also a Hypno watch picked up by one of the runners. I would assume that would be hypnosis.
You assume correctly, and good eye. So there's another Jeff item. It actually tends to be that the assist PSIs getting shuffled to Jeff are very powerful. And then the offensive weapons that Jeff can pick up, the bazooka and bomb, or is it what's the bazooka? And the the bazooka and bottle rockets ending up as PSIs is also very powerful.
And Eraser was picked up on Raiko's side. So it looks like Winters is the play early.
Do they have the pack of bubblegum?
Well, maybe not. I didn't see it, so I guess that's not quite. I got a bit ahead of myself.
Yeah,
I guess
that
that's a
happens.
thing that can happen.
Yeah,
Two
you
different
never wanna
randomizers, 2 different days. That will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You never really want to see that Eraser Racer. It unlocks Stonehenge Base, which is the longest dungeon in the game. Do we happen to have abridged dungeons turned on?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I guess we'll find out.
Okay, you're gonna find out, because it does look like a seed that involves that. Alright, looks like Riker Rider's heading on over to the Sharks, and you might have caught a glimpse of Not Frankie over there. Boss Shuffle is enabled by default in all seeds. So, yeah, the bosses are shuffled. I think there was Titanic Ant and Boogie Tent back there.
If that's what the game wants you to do, then that could be a really fast boogie percent time. Just saying.
Absolutely. I've not figured out what it would mean to be boogie percent in PK Scramble, because we're getting to about the point where alternate win conditions would be fun to add. But is boogie percent really just wherever boogie is? I don't know. Alright, so this is Titanic Ant, and we saw behind Titanic Ant that it was Boogie Tent. So normally Boogie Tent is a lot further into a game, so now's a good time to start talking about scaling. So the way the PK Scramble works is once it's shuffled all the items, the randomizer is going to figure out some random, logically possible path through the seed. And it just bumbles around and clears things out, and whatever path it ends up taking, it's going to scale all of the items and enemies along the way so that it matches that path. So as you're going through that path, the items are getting better, and the enemies are all scaled regardless of what enemy it is. So you see these low-level characters are still able to beat a Boogie Tent, because it's been scaled down to an appropriate level. Also looks like the item that Mr. Purgle is going to have is the police badge. So that is one of a handful of key items that have been added to the game just to smooth out logic and get rid of some like weird plot flags at a distance. The police badge lets you go fight the cops, which lets you go to Tucson. Normally that is a completely weird plot flag coming out of Giant Step, so this kind of makes it so you don't have to keep track of weird plot flags, and instead it's an item. Yeah, Creator in chat is pointing out that Ant was polite today. So we've actually, in the PK Scramble community, had a number of seeds recently where Titanic Ant was really deep in the seed, and his helpers ended up being really nasty enemies that were found deep in the seed, and not just Antoids. On some of the randomization settings, that's possible. We had Carefree Bombs with Titanic Ant, I think 2 days ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It was a very unpleasant surprise for many. Trillionid Sprout is even worse when it happens, because Trillionid Sprout is much more dangerous than Titanic Ant, but still comes with 2 helpers. We've had a few Trillionid Sprout final bosses as well. And Riker Rider is into his cops check. Doesn't look like they're going to be any trouble. And the boss of the cops is Barf.
Now, unfortunately, because we don't have Pooh in the party, we are going to miss something special that is PK Scramble exclusive. Pooh literally loses his cool and just absolutely goes to town on the boss, and then says, "I don't like gross out humor. That's all."
Yeah, so there's a lot of little things. You're not going to see it during the race, because the racers all have their attacks set up to yikes, and they're mashing through it as fast as they can. But in a lot of places where PK Scramble just kind of breaks the plot, where something is supposed to happen plot-wise that just can't be guaranteed with a randomizer, there is extra text in there that tries to patch over it. We've got a lot of people are fans of that text. I'm glad everyone enjoys it, personally. And police check done for Riker Rider. All cops are Belch. You heard it here first.
That is a very good way of putting that. And welcome in folks from SpeedGaming 2. We are very early in a PK Scramble race, and just in time to see where you can pick up in this randomizer, you can pick up not 1, but 2 exit mice.
Jeez, Billy, why does Mom let you have 2 exit mice? Yeah, double exit mice is actually a really good play. It makes the routing a lot more interesting, and also just saves a bunch of time. Should we do the whole spiel of what this is again for the SpeedGaming 2 folks?
Yep, let it fly.
All right, so this is
You
PK
are the one who
Scramble.
created this randomizer.
I've gotten so used to just giving this whole blurb. It's pretty much an autopilot now. Alright, so PK Scramble is a Earthbound key item randomizer that you can find at pkscramble.com. The fact that it's a key item randomizer means that all of the key items are in different spaces. So when they went up to the meteorite, they found the jar of fly honey, and over where the shyness book was supposed to be, they found the Franklin badge. With all these key items shuffled around, and with all of the kid join locations shuffled around, and many of the plot NPCs rewritten to instead give you random teleport accesses, you have to figure out how to get to the end of the game. So this is a standard race percent settings. That means they're going to have to do 4 Sanctuaries. We're going to skip over Magic Ant unless the runners want to go over there for extra stats. And then they have to go do Gygus. To get to Gygus, you still need to get to Saturn Valley, give the meteorite piece to Dr. Andonitz, and also Andonitz will not let you into the Cave of the Past without Paula. So they're looking for 4 Sanctuaries, Saturn Valley access, meteorite piece, and Paula. Then they go beat up Gygus and win the game. Along the way, they're going to find a bunch of regular items and a bunch of enemies. All of these have been scaled according to some logically possible path through the game. So after the randomizer has done all of its shuffling around and how you can possibly get through the seed has changed, that was a key to the cabin. Alright, after all that stuff has been shuffled around and changed, it finds out, well, maybe you should go to Lost Underworld first. And then it would make all the dinosaurs very weak because there's Lost Underworld first. And it would put weak items over there. On the flip side, if you have random starts and on it is last, you might find very, very strong runaway dogs and the gutsy bat right next to them on that on it hill. So figuring out this path through the seed is part of figuring out how to do it. It is not something where you're like super constrained to what the logic does though, because there are plenty of ways to just blow stuff up that is beyond the level you're supposed to be, especially if you're speedrunning. So sometimes you'll get a nasty surprise where some boss is just way out of your league unexpectedly, but a lot of the times you do what the logic would consider a sequence break and it's still just fine. Did I miss anything in there? I don't think I missed anything in there. Yeah, so the dogs can be, well actually, if the dogs are scaled to like end game stats, it's not really scary. Super high stats on an enemy that only does basic attacks and wastes half its turns is still not scary.
And also worth noting is that Jeff started with a toothbrush in his inventory.
Oh yeah, so we'll see if any of the runners want to brush their teeth, but let's not let people know why that might be important. But remember everyone, brush your teeth.
Yeah, otherwise your teeth are gonna look like a wrestler I saw on TV once. It wasn't pretty.
So Ryko Edder's heading over to Happy Happy Village. I didn't notice him picking up the pencil eraser. Oh, and there is a toothbrushing happening right over there. The toothbrush, if anyone doesn't know, is a vanilla item that stuns an enemy, only used in combat once. It's not very useful, but it is important to brush your teeth. Propies is finding out that the escalators have recently been greatly increased in speed, which makes going to the department store much more useful than it was. I think he was also checking the bakery for an item called a Repel Sandwich. So you might have noticed that they're all running at running speed all seed long. Ooh, and Ryko Rider found them in the free shop. Since everyone's always running all the time, the Skip Sandwich is not useful, so since it's been replaced with a Repel Sandwich, that acts kind of like a Repel in Pokemon. For the 10 seconds that a Skip Sandwich would normally be active, no enemies spawn. Any enemies that are already on the screen will stay around, but you can repel your way through various dungeons. They've kind of become centralizing in the meta, so a lot of the top runners will just completely load up on them. I noticed that in the self-serve shop in Happy Happy Village, there are Repel Sandwiches, which is something you always want to see. You don't have to pay at that shop, you just have to take a fight if you steal from it.
And that fight in this seed is Shroom.
Yeah.
One of the bosses that, personally, in vanilla game, don't have the best of memories fighting that particular foe.
Yeah, Shroom is one of the meaner bosses in the game. Alright, so Ryko Rider just got to the cabin that normally has Paula, and you can see that it's Pooh. Pooh comes with a key item, that would be the tiny groupie in vanilla, and we'll have to keep an eye on this inventory and see what's over there. It's the Hawkeye.
Also got a key to the shack, so what that is for is that opens the way up to Giant Step. Now, the question is, are our runners meant to do that now, or is that later?
Yeah, so the logic definitely thinks now or now-ish. It'll be one of the next handful of things that the scaling order of the seed does. But a lot of runners have different preferences for when they need to do the sanctuaries, because most of the sanctuaries don't get you anything. You just have to do 4 of them. So Charging Charles, our previous big tournament winner, always saves them for last and then goes high to low. Personally, I like to wait until you find Paula and then just do all the sanctuaries you have access to, because Paula always needs levels. Some runners like to pick up a sanctuary if they just kind of got lost and don't know what's going on. Ooh, and Jeff has a freeze ray. I don't think we've mentioned this yet for the SpeedGaming 2 folks, but we have extended PSI shuffle on, which means that not only are the regular PSIs of all the kids shuffled, they've been shuffled with Jeff's items. So somebody here is going to have a PSI bomb and PSI rocket, because Jeff has what would normally be PSI rocket as bottle rockets, and has a freeze ray, which is of course PSI freeze.
Oh, and when you say yes to the car painter boss, he says, and I'm not going to be able to do this Gilbert Gottfried impersonation justice. You fool!
You fool, you've fallen for my trap. Yes, and saying yes is actually fascinating. No death ray, just freeze. I think PSI death ray is probably rocket. So if you end up with Jeff's bottle rockets in any PSI slot, they do end up being rather overpowered. I haven't noticed any of the kids having it yet, but it will happen. It might be Paula.
So now the pack of bubblegum has been found.
Alright, well that gives us access to the worst dungeon in the game and a sanctuary. So they should have 3 sanctuary accesses between the 2 of them. Because they have the key to the shack for Giant Step, they have Lilliput Steps, which is just over here, and then Bubblegum plus Winters will give them Rainy Circle.
Again, the question is, where's the logic slide? Because you can be right near something in a PK Scramble, but the game's logic could be like, no, no, no. We don't expect you to do this yet.
Yeah, sometimes we have a case of go home logic, you're drunk. But usually people just power through it if it's being silly. Logic especially likes to just kind of finish its 4th sank and then wander around for a while before getting around to going to Gaius. Speaking of which, they do not have Saturn Valley, or Paula, or the Meteorite piece. So this might be 4 sanks and then hunting for Paula. For TKTZ's question, most of the PSI slots, they will say what they are, but Ness's Rockin' slot is always what you named it no matter what it actually is. And you can guess by the PP cost or just try it and see what the animation is. Bear. So they're both in Lilliput Steps. I'm a little surprised that neither of them picked up those repel sandwiches. I would have just completely filled my inventory with the ones from the free shop.
I can see why Ryko didn't, though, because he is getting some decent experience off of this.
Generally, the bosses have enough experience, but of course, the more you use repel sandwiches and the more you skip over basic fights, the harder Gaius is going to be. There was actually a period of time when all the runners that normally play PK Scramble were just getting better and better and dodging more and more fights. And they all thought that I was making Gygas harder because they didn't realize that they were just going in at lower and lower levels.
This wound up being the first intended Sanctuary, and it is Guardian General.
Oh, that guy's a joke. Guardian General actually has tripled HP with this combination of which boss ends up in which slot, and it is not enough to make Guardian General relevant. So a handful of slots, in addition to the regular scaling, bosses have an extra HP scaling. That's mostly so that Mole Cave and Pyramid have less HP, but the inverse of that scaling gets applied when bosses move out. You can paralyze that guy, but he also just is not scary, so you can just auto-fight it, spam PSI, whatever. I guess a joke.
I mean, to be fair, if you come here in the vanilla game, when the vanilla game intends you to do, paralyzing Mondo Mole just allows you to cheese that fight, and that's what I did as a kid.
Oh yeah,
I just picks up a hand-aid in the
that's a good
chest
item.
before the boss. Yes, very good item, because that is full HP recovery.
I see a lot of people throw that on the ground, and it makes me sad. Also, paralyzing Mondo Mole is a great idea, because Mondo Mole is significantly harder than Guardian General. This guy is a chump. Of course, when I'm talking about how difficult these bosses are, this is after scaling, so it's their stats divided by their level times their new level that they end up at. So Guardian General is very weak for where you would normally fight him, so he just ends up weak wherever you go. Some bosses ended up better off than others due to scaling. What's his face? Kraken actually has
in a bit of trouble here. In a damage race, needs to get some smashes.
Ooh, that's no good.
Missed it.
Hopefully he's saved in. Hopefully saved in Happy Happy. Ooh, not a Happy Happy save. That's gonna be a big time loss.
That may be a comeback later situation.
That's true. They did not need to do the Sanctuaries for anything except finishing the game. So running off and doing something else, running off and doing something that can get them max items, still very viable. Like I said, I like to hold off until I have Paula before doing all the Sanks. I would do Lilliput because it's way out in the middle of nowhere, but you'll still get that XP on Paula if you put it off to a second dip.
Raiko takes down the Guardian Digger, and it truly is the third strongest mole.
Oh, that's interesting. So this is out of logic. There's no reason to do the. So you get an item from that boss if you have beaten Paula, or is it if you picked up Paula? But two of the shops in Berglund Park are locked behind the boss. So once you beat the boss, even if it's without Paula, you can still pick up those items, and you can get shops that might be deeper into the seed than what you're currently at, and you can pick up some very nice items and get a move on. It doesn't look like Raiko Rider is picking up those items.
Maybe it's a case of he'll come back later when he's got more money in the bank.
Maybe. The longer you put it off, the less the out-of-scaled items are useful.
Although if, well, $37.94, I'd say I'd have two words to say: go shopping. But that's just me.
Yeah, with that much money, you're probably going to be able to pick up weapons, which are the big thing you want for middle of the seed items. Getting a good bat on Ness is always just a huge saver.
Good weapons always help as Pro Piece gets a smash on a mobile sprout.
Is he heading back to, Yep, looks like another Lilliput. You know, Raiko Rider is electing to continue doing Sanctuaries instead of going
why is Pro Piece going north? If you beat Carpainter, the bridge that separates the two gets built, so...
Yeah, I must not have realized that the bridge is built. So actually, in PK Scramble, the bridge trigger has been changed. So it's actually just as soon as you enter Happy Happy Village, the bridge is finished. Just because beating Carpenter versus rescuing Paula is a very strange distinction. About half of the plot flags in vanilla are triggered by beating Carpenter, and half of them are for beating Paula. It is a very confusing soup. The treehouse in this flag set, there's not really any use for it. Ness's friend who gives you an item, that item is scaled, and if you have high levels of random items going on that can be very random, if you're using a random starting location and on it's really deep, then that item could be something very strong. It is theoretically possible for that kid to have the gutsy bat. That might not actually be possible to quite finagle the seed so that on it is that deep, but still, the kid could have a very strong item if it's deeper into the seed. Also, just the standard speedrun strats of getting your friend's hat and immediately selling it still do apply in PK Scramble. Some people still go for that.
Raiko was not happy with himself with that back attack. I could see it written all over his facial expressions and body language.
Oh, looks like Pro Piece is actually buying repels. So this is always a little bit of a risky strat because it's kind of menu boss. If you mess up on any single one of these, then the boss is going to still fight you.
And I'm willing to guess that you don't get a chance to get away. Oh, and look at this. It's Car Painter, a giant step.
Yeah, you do not get a chance to run away from the stand. The boss will interrupt you and chase you. If you try to teleport away, well, if you bonk within Happy Happy Village, you'll probably crash the game. There's only so much I can do about that. But if you teleport and successfully end up somewhere else, you'll get a very funny interaction. Highly recommend doing it sometime. It will not save you time, though. I found a IQ capsule in there. That's actually a good item to put on the poo. And a second freeze ray. Jeff cannot dual wield, so that is useless. So, for logic, I think the only thing they have left is the Winter's Dive. I can't think of anything else they can do that would actually get them places.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to right now. So all this stuff that Raiko has done to this point has actually helped him prepare for said dive with the experience points, the levels, the money spent for shopping as Pro Piece takes on Minibar.
So, Raiko just got his Tony phone call. Tony's been modified to request the dumbest meme you know, because I know what people are going to put into this name box, might as well acknowledge it. Looks like Raiko Rider has decided to really honor the prompt and give us a full-length meme.
And yes, full disclosure, I misspelled Wobbuffet last night, but hey, nobody's perfect.
And those Pokemon.
I will own that.
Franklin Bench was Shyness book location.
And Raiko's having a laugh at that meme. Well played.
Looks like Raiko's looking for equipment. Probably hoping for a better bat. But not finding one. It's going to be kind of a PSI heavy seed, but it's a good flag set to end up on those. Just say Jeff got rid of the IQ capsule. For anyone who doesn't know, the IQ capsule increases your psychic points. So you put it on Pooh, because Pooh has very low psychic points, and then on his next level up, he'll get more of them.
Yes, it's sort of a stat balancing thing, because I assume the stats are based off vanilla game for this, because in Ancient Cave, one of the things that we do is randomize the stats, so it's different from seed to seed.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to strategize.
Yeah, all of the stats in PK Scramble are the same, seed to seed. It'd be very easy for me to go through and randomize them all, just do like a jitter or something. But I haven't come up with something that's actually like a compelling way to randomize them, so it's just like a consistent, always interesting way, which is kind of how I like my randomization to be when I put stuff into this. Not that every single thing I've done is always interesting, but that is the theme. Alright, we've got a Tessie ride. Everyone get your best MS Paint Beast emotes or puns.
I'd say a pun, but when I first heard and Raiko's got his namesake on screen,
Very nice.
which is extremely fitting for this, I might add. I hear Tessie and I think Dropkick Murphys released a song by that title around 2004. Yeah, they're a Boston-based band, so what's happened since then? I could go on and on about that, but anyway, the Tessie ride's done.
Goodbye, Tessie. Raiko Rider doing the strange despawn that works there. It's from vanilla. I have no idea why it still works in PK Scramble. But if you head down and left from Tessie and then rub your nose up against that wall, the enemies that spawn right below Tessie just consistently do not spawn.
And it looked like the Lesser Mook wanted to send Raiko's party to the refrigerator.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens with all of the enemies being scaled is that, so Earthbound has a lot of fixed damage attacks. All of the PSI in this game and several other things have no stats involved whatsoever, and it just, PSI Freeze does about 120 damage, I think it's 120, and then adds on your freeze resistance, and that's it. So, if an enemy has, say, Fire Beta, I can lower that down to Fire Alpha. But if I have Freeze Alpha, that is still like 100 damage. It's more than anyone's ready for like over half of a seed. So a lot of PSIs have reduced versions with funny names. Actually, this very boss is probably going to treat us to some of those as well. Yes, this is a sort of a crashing boom bang attack. That was a clamorous pow thud attack, which is
that name convention. I am now thinking of similarities and drawing those to the battle arts that Ricky uses in Xenoblade Chronicles 1.
I've not played it, don't know.
Which, side note, if you haven't played it, it's worth playing. The definitive edition makes it even more accessible than ever, and it's definitely worth it.
I'll have to check that out. So, to give a full example, the crashing boom bang attack can be a fizzing zip zap attack, a clamorous pow thud attack, a crashing boom bang attack, or a thunderous crack-a-thoom attack, depending on how deep into the seed it thinks you should be. Psychropis is continuing to not steal from Shroom. Picking up these repel sandwiches, especially if this is enough for Stonehenge, will really be an advantage and a way to start catching up.
Raiko's found secret herbs, and he also got the meteorite piece from the mouse. So now we really are looking for a way to Saturn Valley.
Yeah, we also need another sanctuary, actually. Oh, actually, we have Jar of Fly Honey. So that is 4th Sank. We need a way to get to Saturn Valley. I believe that the Stonehenge item now just has to be a wad of bills. I could very easily be wrong about this.
Potentially. Wonder if it could also be the teleport to Threed or Saturn Valley.
Wait,
or some other crazy sequence.
Well, it can't be a teleport down there, but don't they have Dalam?
Yes, so with Pooh...
Yeah, neither of them have checked.
Do the trials.
Yeah, so Pooh's Moo training trials is another random teleport option. Probably would have been worth picking it up before doing the entire long trek down over here, because that could get you any sort of useful thing.
And if Pro Piece were to do that, he could easily find himself right back in the running here.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that this Stonehenge is likely to be unnecessary, but if it is and Pro Piece manages to avoid it, then that is more than the time loss that happened. This is not an abridged Stonehenge, this is the full thing.
And chat is asking if the eraser erases itself.
And it does. Very nice convenience. Also, that Senor Mook used PSI Fire Epsilon, which is another one of those scaled down PSIs that you'll see.
And yes, I agree, chat. That is a nice touch because it's also one less item to put in Escargo Express.
Yeah, you can really get stuck with too many items in your inventory, especially on those NES only seeds. So every item that can get rid of itself is good. At this point, the only item that does not get rid of itself, only two items that don't get rid of themselves, are the Franklin badge, which of course you don't actually want to get rid of itself, and the pencil eraser, because I didn't feel like checking whether you've visited all three pencils. It looks like Ranker Rider's through phase 1 of this extremely long dungeon. That purple part of this dungeon is longer than most dungeons by itself. But then we have 2 entire tileset changes in an exit mouse room to go through. Micro is doing a great job of getting green swirls from all those Starmen. This ladder is at least a lot faster now. It's always nice to zip past that.
Yes, I love zipping around the ladders, and I don't know if we're going to see our runners swimming through water or not, but that's also an extremely nice touch, because after playing a couple of these seeds, water movement is just painful.
Oh yeah, Pro Piece is just putting A as a meme. Fun fact, if you need a actual meme that is only one letter long, you can type F. That's my PK Scramble speedrunning pro tip of the day.
And the atomic-powered robot takes out the teddy bear in the explosion.
That'll happen. Yeah, this room is full of garbage. Looks like Pro Piece is heading over there and should have repel sandwiches, which will speed it up considerably, but did not think to go check Trial the Nothingness. Do you know if either of the runners are using trackers?
Not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, most of the enemies down here are very scary. Actually, regular Starmen, I did not remember from a kid how completely weak and useless they are. There were like 75% chance of doing nothing or essentially nothing. Right, we've got
It's Mondo Mole that's down here.
Yeah, so somebody earlier mentioned that paralysis works great on this one, but doesn't look like Draco Rider is going to go through the effort of figuring out which kid actually has paralysis. Also, we just found out that Rockin', which is memes according to Draco Rider, is weak Starstorm right now. If anyone has development-ish questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. And Riker Rider is through the worst dungeon in the game. And we've got another chance for everyone to pull out their MS Paint Beast emotes. So that Mr. Saturn, who normally gives you a Saturn ribbon, you can see gave a Mr. Baseball map. So whoever was asking earlier about whether Ness's friend would have a different item, this is the same thing, where you get a different item out of the NPCs that give you items.
Yep, that's water bills. So now Raiko's going to be able to get to 3. That is a kid check to be had.
That's
Is
true.
it
Could be Paula.
Paula? Is it the teddy bear? Is it Flying Man? Those are the 3 that I can think of, at least.
Yeah, those are the only ones there are. So you got them all. Probably Paula. Paula would be another item check, and also they have the boogie tent access down there as well. So 1 or 2 item checks coming up out of this, and they still have that unused PSI check from the LOM. I am thinking the chances are very high that it's Paula, but it's always funny when you get clowned on. Alright, looks like Riker Rider's gonna be turning in that wad of bills, getting a cutscene, heading to Threed. One fun thing in PK Scramble is you can actually get to Threed from either direction. Either of the Runaway 5 rides that you can get will get you past the ghosts. It now works both ways. There's actually the most different ways to get to Threed of any place in the game.
Question in chat. If one were to go to Magic Ant, is there an exit, or does Nightmare still need to be dealt with? I can say for one, you can teleport out of Magic Ant, as that is a teleport location.
Yep, you can teleport until you get to the spiral. That one spot where the palette suddenly changes is also the border of where you're allowed to teleport. So on these seed settings, which are the defaults, Magic Ant is optional. And an optional Magic Ant will just give you a stat boost for everyone who participates, and a pile of experience. So it's a very nice safety if you're worried about Gygus, or if you can do it super early and cheese the boss somehow. You can also just plow through the rest of the seed with piles of stats. On the other hand, it is rather slow, and the boss will always end up being slightly higher scale than Gygus himself.
Pro Piece is taking down Thunder and Storm.
Very nice.
And that puppet just got run over by the Runaway 5.
Whoops. Yeah, the game has a lot of stuff preventing that I ended up just having to get rid of because there's so many different turning off spawns bugs possible. It's impossible to keep track of all of them. Riker Rider is saving his game in the middle of being drawn into a trap. And who's the kid gonna be? It's Paula. So, unlike the other kids, Paula does not start with a key item. Doesn't in Vanilla, doesn't in Scramble. But Paula has the largest PSI pool and is required to beat Gygus, so she's still best kid. So take it easy. The thing behind this part is that the zombies have this lady wearing sunglasses at night, and the kids are like, wow, that's really sketchy. We should go check out what she's doing, because she's wearing sunglasses at night. And then they follow her, and it's a trap, and you should, have a better plan than just follow this person because they're sketchy.
Yeah, although now that you put it like that, I feel like that she is a reference to an old song from the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Called
I'm making a reference to an old song from the 80s.
I like to wear my sunglasses at night. I'm not singing it because DMCA.
You can sing well enough to be DMCA, that's a skill.
Yeah, it would be a case of Krusty the Clown saying in an episode of The Simpsons, "Stop the music! Stop it!" One more line and we have to pay for the song. I wish it was YMCA, chat, believe me.
Wait, wasn't DMCA in Mother 3 not Earthbound?
That is a different band name. It was DCMC.
Oh, I see. Oh, Proby's got through that dungeon pretty quick. Must have had those sandwiches. Wasn't even looking over there, now the dungeon's almost gone.
Yeah, he went through the dungeon very fast. He's also, years ago, used to speedrun the vanilla games, so his knowledge of this game is exceptionally strong.
Yeah, that speedrunning knowledge definitely helps out a lot. I also noticed on Ryko Rider's side, this shop sells OK pendants. OK pendants are the only piece of added equipment in PK Scramble. They are a weak fire, freeze, and flash resistance. They've been added because it makes Forsank Gygus a lot more sensible. So they're just in the seed about where such a pendant would be, about where it would help you beat a Forsank Gygus. It has roughly the same resistances as the Diadem of Kings. It's worse than all of the other Protect All pendants, but it really does help out with that early Gygus. Looks like a reset from Micro Rider. Is this a large pizza or something else? There are actually 3 Earthbound Randomizers, and I can recommend 2 of them. So there's Reshuffler, which is ancient, one of the first randomizers out there. Just kind of goes through the game and changes all the enemies and sprites and has a whole lot of crazy settings with no logic to them at all. Generally, just if you want to have a code of randomness over everything, that could be your choice. There is Ancient Cave over at Earthbound.app that will reshuffle all of the rooms in the game into a giant maze, have a big combat-heavy, exploration-heavy thing to go find Gygus. The same website, Earthbound.app, also has a non-Ancient Cave mode, which does everything that Reshuffler used to do. So if you want that reshuffled experience, I'd recommend going over to Earthbound.app and just turning off Ancient Cave mode. And then finally, there's PK Scramble, which we're watching right now, which is a key item randomizer that you can find at pkscramble.com. Ooh, Carrot Key, that is not quite Go mode. They still need Saturn Valley.
That should get Ryko Rider back to Dalam.
Yeah, hopefully. There's still one more possible... Oh, that is Dalam. Okay. I was gonna say there's one more possible dead end, but this is Dalam. It should be Saturn Valley. If it's not, then Everdread could have Zombie Paper that would also finish off his seed. It's interesting, they can end up with 5 Sanctuary accesses, but both 4 and 5 were Stonehenge required, so we still had to do it. I'm actually thinking that this is probably going to be 5th Sanctuary that Ryko Rider is heading into. I think Milky Well is probably 4th. So this is a case of going, I assume, I'm guessing right now, this is 5th Sank, which would mean that it is out of order according to the logic, and you can see that Micro Rider is still just plowing through it. Unless you're really, really far off of what logic is expecting, or you're really early in the seed, it's not really that dangerous. Looks like Propice has realized that this is a place to go as well.
But he doesn't have the Carrot Key. He's going for the Moo training.
Yeah, this will actually be a slight time loss unless there's something really cool over here.
We're about to find out.
I guess if this is the Saturn Valley teleport, then Propice is going to have Go mode and not be doing this bunny cave. Because you'll be able to fly honey through Belch Base and into Milky Well. And that is actually a slower route, so it's going to be just kind of an unlucky way for things to pan out. The Viper is a very good combat item. A lot of newer runners will sleep on it. But if you end up in, like, over your head, something is very dangerous, but you're not instantly obliterated, Viper can actually really turn that around. They'll poison an enemy, which does 20 damage a turn, and in those long fights, that really adds up.
Yes, the damn. Oh, that's a magic can't teleport for Pro Piece.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting. That means that I think Everdread is zombie paper. I think that's the only thing left. So that will not be a that case that I was wondering about Proby sending up through Belch base. And my guess about this being 5th Sank is invalidated. I didn't see what Sank number it is.
I did not either. Perhaps chat did.
Let's see what Sank this is. Also, this is SNES's Nightmare. Nobody knows SNES's Nightmare. When I was developing this, I had to change the scaling rules and scaling of various things involved with Nightmare the most out of any boss. It was the last one to be pulled into reasonability. All those PSIs needed to be scaled down significantly. The HP eventually needed to be scaled down because it was rather high for the bosses. And it was actually a long time before I started scaling down Life Up, and you'd end up with Life Up Alpha, a really early boss, and having a horrible time. No, Oscars are actually in Final Fantasy, not Earthbound. My commander is at Pink Cloud, which is now blue, and Propice is now in Pink Tucson.
And Marco's got the 4th Sank, but we ain't done yet.
Yeah, this is going to be a search for a way to Satin Valley is our final requirement. Which I'm pretty sure it's Everdread to Zombie Paper. That message that Reinko Rider got, Ness absorbed the power of the land into his heart. You normally get that after Magic Ant. And that is your signal that you can go beat Gygus, or I suppose it's for Gygus. Of course, there are quite a few logistical problems. Reinko Rider does not actually have a way to get to Gygus yet. So do you think Propice is going to go to Magic Ant and get those levels?
We shall see. As at this point, one thing we can safely say is that unless it explicitly shows up, we're not going to need Monkey Cave, and that's a good thing, because Monkey Cave, I don't care how many Sanks you're running, it's annoying.
I actually like Monkey Cave.
I mean, it's fun, but it's easy to get lost in unless you're really familiar with it.
Oh yeah,
Me,
you're definitely
so
in the majority when you don't like Monkey Cave. My least favorite dungeon is actually 3D Tunnel. Just never like having to do it. It always feels super slow. Yeah, I actually think this would be a good case for doing the Magic Ant play. They know they have to go through 3D Tunnel, and that's like an entire extra dungeon, so getting in Magic Ant before you are literally at the end can just let you plow through the rest of the game. And all of Pooh's friends are just watching his limbs be torn off. But it's okay, because it's all in Pooh's mind. Looks like Raiko Rider is reading a tracker at this point, doesn't know quite where to go. When I was a kid, that scene, I convinced myself, like, basically every single one of those prompts, this was the one where I'm supposed to turn away. Like, clearly they're testing me on knowing which one of these is the point where you're supposed to back out, and I fell for a lot of them.
You are not the only one.
You do that too?
Yep, and yep, zombie paper at Everdread, or rather in this case, the Guardian Mole, wound up being the way to go. So now it's back to Threed, and I would assume Raiko is in endgame mode at this point.
Yeah, this is everything that is needed to know. Just go through all the checks and get it. Has access to Belch Base, which is completely useless because they have all their sank requirements. So if you did want to continue this seed, just ignore that it's a 4 sank and go for 8. Then the next play would be Belch Base, which will open up the 7 Coffee, which is a teleport. And it'll also get rid of the ghosts in the 3 tunnels, which will let them get to 4 side. This has actually been a very vanilla-esque seed, now that I think about it. They've ended up in, like, on it through 3 most of the time. But yeah, if you were going to continue, this one would actually continue vanilla-esque down to 4 side. The Star Master in the Cave of the Past, who teaches you PSI Starstorm Omega, is also a PK check and could give you a random teleport.
Nice dodge of the first set of flies by Raiko, but the second fly, not so fast.
Also, Propius with a very nice dodge of that lady who always blocks the way to this shop. A handful of NPCs in this game can just, like, 1 in 4 chance of walking right where you need to go. Looks like Propius is loading up on Repel sandwiches. This is actually a shop that is fairly likely to have them. So again, something that can help catch up is just using the sandwiches through all the dungeons. I don't think it's going to be enough, but I don't know what Raiko Rider is doing about Cave of the Past, because I don't think he has any Repel sandwiches.
If I had to guess, and this is just my knowledge of the game, I think he is grinding up to try and get Paula to get Psychic Shield Sigma, which is immensely helpful for Phase 1 of Gygus.
Yes, it absolutely is. But even Psy Shield Sigma and good levels won't really get you through the cave, because those enemies are honestly even worse than Gygus.
Also, it's worth noting that the boss at the end of Pink Cloud, that was number 4.
Number 4. Alright, that means that Milky Well is probably 5. And they are, insofar as logic means anything, on logic. And there's a nice dance in Electrospectre.
That's a really nice touch to see the bosses in the overworld like that.
Oh yeah. Messianic, who did Mother 2 Deluxe, the ROM hack, who contributed a lot of these overworld boss sprites, and some of them came out really good. Some of them being Electrospectre. Electrospectre is just so jamming.
Yeah, that one's A+ in my book.
Yeah. I also really like just how derpy the sprite for Thunder and Storm is. Like, it is so, like, kind of dumb looking. It's very Earthbound. Oh, Paula had PSI Bomb. I haven't seen PSI Rocket, though. I think that might be in the Starstorm slot.
That is definitely possible.
Hopefully we'll have a vanilla Star Master teach Pooh what would be PSI Starstorm, end up with PSI Rocket. Because everyone likes seeing that PSI. Brain Food Lunches on this vendor. A lot of people forget that this is a vendor.
That's a vendor I can't ever forget because first couple of times I played through this game, that was a restock point for getting extra healing items when you were struggling a bit after going through the 3 tunnel. Because at
Oh
that
yeah, I
point
had
in the
so
game,
much
that
trouble.
ain't fun.
I had so much trouble with that tunnel as a kid. And now as like an adult, I'd only have trouble with it if I was speedrunning, because it is also awful in a speedrun. Looks like a refight for Ropius. Didn't get through the nightmare the first try. And Reichweiner's about to turn in the meteorite piece. So normally when you get to the very end of the game, Mandalith sends you to Dark on it to go pick up the meteorite piece and get Zexonite to repair the space distorter. No Dark on it in this. You just pick up the meteorite piece somewhere. And then repair the phase distorter, get to the Cave of the Past. The Star Master there, as I've mentioned, is another PK check, random PSI or teleport. Looks like Reiko is not immediately turning it in, accidentally getting the hint instead. So this is a hint on to where the meteorite piece is. What you want to do is give it to the man. There you go. So you have to leave this room and come back, and really have to actually sleep. And then it will be repaired, and you can do it. Oh, Sword of Kings.
Nice.
Nice. Everyone
That
likes
is
seeing it.
Pooh's ultimate weapon right there.
That's not true anymore, actually. We discovered a glitch a week or two ago where any kid can equip any item. And the magic truffle, if you try to equip it, will end up in your weapon slot, and it is Pooh's best weapon.
I have got to see that because that is news to me.
Oh yeah, I need to like tell Starman.net or something about this. If you have a teddy bear in your inventory, and then the item you want to equip, sorry, an item you can equip, and then the item you want to equip, in that order, and you lose your teddy bear on the turn that you in battle equip the one that you can, you'll go to the next item and you'll equip something. Most items are not useful out of their slots. Most items do not have any stats. The two best and funniest ones you can do are the Casey Bat is actually an extremely good pendant. If you manage to wiggle it over to the other slot, it is 125 defense and freeze resistance. And as I mentioned, the Magic Truffle and Pooh's weapon will give you 80 offense and 80 guts.
Oh, wow. That is broken.
Yeah, that's like most of the
Smokes.
that's most of the way to a gutsy bat. And of course, Pooh has a pretty high base defense.
Because I want to say in the last year, Chugga Conroy did a second Let's Play of the base vanilla Earthbound. Yeah! This was not knowledge back then, so my mind just got blown.
Oh yeah, we've actually and 4H, one of the fastest speedrunners of PK Scramble, accidentally equipped an exit mouse to his pendant slot when running one of our races. And then myself and Sarah from the PK Scramble community and a bunch of other people dove through everything to figure out what happened and figured out yeah, you can equip any item. Most of them don't do anything, and a lot of them won't go to the slot that you want them to, but you can equip anything. Hello, SpeedGaming 3. You're watching the tail end of PK Scramble, which is a Earthbound key item randomizer. This is the tail end of it, so most of you guys are going to end up seeing Gygus and a couple of Sanctuary bosses. But the way that this works is that items, you need to progress with the game are in random spaces. So they found the fly honey on the meteorite, for example. Bosses have been shuffled, kid join locations have been shuffled, so they've got Paula where you would get Jeff, and they got Pooh where you get Paula. And some plot NPCs give you random teleports. They have to figure out how to get some number of Sanctuaries done and then beat Gygus, which Riker Rider is on the way to doing, and Pro Beast is on the way to finishing off those Sanctuaries.
Yeah, he's on his third attempt for Ness's Nightmare, which is a very difficult boss, even with how things have been scaled down for bosses. The Nightmare is still a nightmare.
Yeah, unless you get Nightmare in, like, Frank slot, you're gonna have a bad time. In Frank slot, like, it doesn't matter what it does to you, you can just bash it down. But Nightmare is definitely one of the scarier bosses. Scariest bosses in PK Scramble are probably Nightmare, Carbon Dog, Diamond Dog, and perhaps surprisingly, Starman Jr.
Yes, I can agree with Starman Jr. because it attacks with all PSI moves.
Yeah,
It's
also...
similar to Ancient Cave in that regard, but the difference there is that in that rando, it's not shuffled, you just shoot a big bottle rocket and move on. Here, a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, Big Bottle Rocket still works very well on that fellow. Bionic Kraken are getting a 1 in 128 item drop? No.
That's unfortunate, because that would have been hyped to see, and Raiko has reached the end of the gauntlet, and is that guy, I guess he's checking over equipment now. But yes, Carbon Dog isn't nearly as bad if you get him early. If you get him late, then he's really bad. Ancient Cave, he's always late at the end, and it's worse than Gygus.
Yeah, Ancient Cave doesn't have any boss scaling, so if you got really early Carbon Dog, you would just have a horrible time.
Yeah, thankfully, instead of scaling, there are limits on where certain bosses can show up.
Yeah.
Carbon Dog can only show up at the end of floor 8 as a result of that.
Yeah, actually, in Pika Scramble now, there is a, what's it called? Progressive boss shuffle is one of the options. So you can have, despite doing the game out of order, the bosses will end up in the vanilla order.
And speaking of Starman...
Which one? Oh, it's Junior.
Oh, it's Starman Jr. This could get rough really fast because it's 2 PSI moves a turn.
Yeah, this is one of the ones you don't want to see.
Yikes!
So the bright side here is that Starman Jr. does not start with a PSI shield. So blowing him up is still an option. You don't have to be super delicate about that. Unfortunately, they did not find PSI Rocket. So it's gonna have to be Bomb, and it looks like Jeff's Freeze Ray, but actually Starman Jr. weirdly has super high freeze and fire resistances. As you can see, that freeze just did 9 damage.
And he just attacked with Fire Alpha. And that's a reset. I don't blame him whatsoever, because this endgame is likely going to be a great equalizer. And it looks like... Okay, Slime Vortex. That is a much different item. I'm guessing Slime Generator got an upgrade.
So this is the... So if you get your Slime Generator randomized into a PSI slot, it'll be an assist, and it'll be Slime Alpha. So what is Slime Omega? Well, it's an all-targeting Slime Generator attack. And the Slime Vortex is the Slime Omega reshuffled back into Jeff's slot. It has a very cool animation. It is slightly useful. It is not as completely useless as the Slime Generator, but it is pretty close. So Propius has quite a bit of hoofing it to do to get back, but did actually pick up those repel sandwiches, so if Raiko Rider takes another wipe, then I think Propius will be caught up.
So what we have here is an instance of what we would call in some randomizers, including 2 that Raiko Rider and myself both play. That would be Mario 3 Rando and Zelda 1 Rando. A great equalizer. And a Starman Jr. as Gygus' assistant is definitely that equalizer.
Yeah, I think they in Final Fantasy VI Worlds, think that about Kefka. They might have changed their mind because I think there's various patches that make Kefka reasonable. Yeah, so this is going to be a rough Gygas fight. Ryko Rider does have okay pendants. I didn't see if Propies picked them up. That is one of the big things you want, and they'll help with the Starman Jr. as well. Ryko Rider, I think, looks like he's grinding, probably PSI Shield Sigma. Grinding for Shield Sigma is good. It's another Magic Ant possible seed. If these runners were as psychic as these kids, then they would have known to go do a Magic Ant as soon as they got it unlocked, because it's going to be a Starman Jr. seed.
Yeah, this feels like one of those seeds where actually doing Magic Ant would be very helpful, if I had to venture a guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially if they'd done it before doing 3 tunnel, because basically once you do Magic Ant, all the enemies except Gygas melt before you, and Gygas doesn't melt, but is not very threatening. Yeah.
And it looks like Ryko is committed to this grind.
Oh, TKTZ, you actually can just leave the Cave of the Past. There is a return option on the Phase Disorder, and you head back, and Dr. Animus is surprised that you came back, and it's just like, yeah, whatever.
That's not a thing you can do in the vanilla game.
Yeah, they really liked their points of no return back in the 90s.
Oh, please, there's still some RPGs that do that nowadays.
Oh, that's awful. That is a piece of game design that is outdated, in my opinion. Ooh, looks like Propius is missed that his attempt to neutralize the shield of Electrospectre failed, and then got a whole lot of PSI reflected back. That will slow you down. And taking a reset. So they actually have a flag enabled called Easy Deaths. Normally in Earthbound, when you take a death, you have your 3 trailing kids are all dead, and then Ness has no PSI. If you turn on Easy Death, and you lose half your money. If you turn on Easy Deaths, instead, dying just gives you a full heal, everyone's fine, and you don't lose any money. It's very handy if you're playing like super high difficulty, adding on all of the plus difficulty flags that you can. It's also just kind of friendly. Might end up being enabled by default eventually, because Earthbound's death is really weirdly punishing.
Yeah, there's a few games out there where deaths are punishing, although for those who are familiar with the Persona game series, the series that it spun off on, Shin Megami Tensei, was very punishing back in the day. Just ask Ryko about Nocturne. I will leave it at that.
I actually, maybe we should just add a flag that has a hard deaths. So then, you die, and then you have to go do a corpse run before you can get all your items back.
That might be a bit too evil.
Yeah, actually, the Pokey's Choice flag set that turns on every possible extra difficulty thing is on easy deaths, just because it's not going to be fun if you're constantly dying and you have to go to the hospital. And Ryko Rider is back to Gygas. Checking inventory. Gonna figure out if you can beat the awful combination of Gygas and Starman Jr. And Propies got through that Electrospectre. It is just a nice hike through Grapefruit Falls and then on to the Cave of the Past. So it looks like Ryko Rider needs one more death before Propies will be caught up. So we'll see whether that happens, and if it does, we'll have a close race yet again. That is definitely true, Creador. So for extra difficulty options, if anyone is in that mindset, PK Scramble has a thing called Cursed Enemies, which I think is a lot of fun, which gives every kind of enemy in the game some number that you choose of random buffs. The buffs can be like plus 50% offense or other stats. They can be harder attack scripts. They can be starting off with PSI shields and all sorts of other mean things, varying between genuinely mean to just kind of petty and spiteful. Um, so if you enjoy difficulty, I highly recommend Cursed Enemies. And if you don't, it is a flag. It's not on by default in any flag set except Poke's Choice, so don't worry about it.
And it looks like Raikou was able to get a turn 1 solidify on Starman Jr., so that will help.
Yeah, that helps a lot. I got that Side Shield Sigma. Also helps quite a bit.
Yeah, what Raikou basically has to do in this scenario is a PSI shield every turn, because that's party-wide losing 2 levels of the shield every turn.
Yeah, if Paula goes between Gygus and Starman Jr. in the turn order, then she can get another turn without casting shield. But otherwise, you're just gonna have to do it every single turn.
And sometimes an enemy can be solidified and then be able to move right away.
Yeah,
and here we go. Phase 1 is done.
Good job, Raikou Rider. Let's hope that Gygus Phase 2 is only as evil as it normally is. Yeah, so that Solidify thing, actually, Aureliux, the Earthbound speedrunner, was the first, like, actual runner to give PK Scramble the time of day. So a lot of his balanced thoughts ended up in the game, and that includes nerfing Solidify, because on his first run of the game, he just completely loaded his inventory with handbag straps and just cheesed everything with them. So it's like, okay, we have to put handbag straps deeper into the logic to do something about Solidify spam being so good. So bosses have a 50% chance of breaking free of Solidify.
Now, here's an interesting development. No brain shock. So Gygus is just not going to be able to be brain shocked. However, Paula on Rye's side is holding the Franklin badge, so that won't be a concern. The other moves still will be, but that'll be nice.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Gygus has 4 attacks. All of them have just random weird ravings for their met text, and then you cannot grasp the form of Gygus' attack. The one that we just saw is actually, in vanilla, a freeze alpha to everyone in your party. It is certainly like a refrigerate beta or something. A full freeze alpha would do a ton of damage. There is a Thunder beta attack that Gygus can do. That'll probably be scaled down. Might be Thunder beta because they have that Franklin badge, not expected to. If you actually fight Gygus at 8th Sank Vanilla Depths in PK Scramble, that one ends up higher. I just could not convince the scaling that Gygus needs only Thunder beta. Also, you can see that these prayer sequences have been randomized and really sped up. So watch out for interesting prayer sequences. Alright. Let's see. The other one is a Flash. It is Flash Gamma. Most people think it's Flash Omega, but it is Gamma in vanilla. And it'll probably be Flash Beta here. Traveling Entertainers prayed for Nessa's friends. Coopies is doing the Magic Ant dive, but I think it is a little late for that. Battle Capsule, though.
Did get a T-Rex bat as well. That's nice.
That is nice. Everyone get your guesses in for who might pray for Ness and his friends. There's only 80 options, so you're guaranteed to get it right. Gerardo Montague prayed for ours.
And the track and the backhoe's doing a bit of a dance as well.
Yeah,
alternating between left and right.
Who had Gerardo Montague on their bingo card? Mayor Perkle prayed for R and his friends. And who guessed Perkle? I haven't paid attention. I don't actually know how many of these we have left. There's 7 total. Aren't has prayed for friends the Moonsidians. Oh, I haven't seen that one in a while. And that looks like his final randomized prayer. Thanks for playing. This game is rigged because there's 80 plus options.
That last one was Flash.
Paula's prayer is absorbed by the darkness. That's second to the last prayer. This is last prayer. Oh, Paula fell asleep.
And Paula decided now it's
Last
time to take a
prayer.
nap.
Yeah, so actually Flash Beta is nerfed by default, and that would have been an instant death Flash if it was not for the nerf.
Yeah, that would
is
have been bad with the OK Pennant. But anyway, that is time. Get your GGs in chat.
GG, everyone. Yeah, so in standard Earthbound timing, this will be when you ended. In PK Scramble, we wait until the U1 that you'll see in a second, and that's just for consistency between different flag sets, but there's really nothing that can go wrong between now and then. So
With some of the computer problems, with some of the computer/technical problems I've been having lately, I wouldn't be surprised because I had to update something, and before I updated it, I could have had a random crash at any time. So I could have crashed at the wrong time.
Jeez. Yeah, I've never seen a crash here. There are a couple of places in this game that are a little crashy. Earthbound is kind of held together with chewing gum and baling twine.
Now that sounds like a description of Pokemon Generation 1, Red and Blue specifically.
Earthbound is not as poorly programmed as those. It's up there, but it's not that high up there. Alright, and that's PK Scramble. It's at pkscramble.com. Hope you all check it out. It is a good rando. I'm not biased at all. Yeah.
Yep. Perhaps we'd like to bring our runners in, but
we do that, or does one of the admins do that? I'm a guest.
I can do that. Anyway, the race time results. Ryko Rider took the win with a time of 1:19:34, and Pro Peace called it a night.
Makes sense. One of the things with Geiger's flags is you don't like calling it a night when your option is fighting Geigus is very understandable. You see a lot more forfeits on Geigus seeds than non-Geigus seeds. Should we pull in? Oh, you got him.
And we're joined by Ryko Rider. GG.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I don't know what happened to Pro Peace, but he told me in race time chat that he was way behind.
Yeah, he was actually closer than he thought.
Yeah.
You had trouble with Geigus because the partner that Geigus drew for this seed was being Starman Jr. Gave him some time to catch up. He just ran out of time.
Just when I saw Starman Jr., I was tempted to reset immediately and just grind for Shield Sigma because I didn't think there was a way that I was going to beat that fight without Shield Sigma. And ultimately, that's what I did. I think that was really the only way out.
Yeah, it was that or a Magic Ant dip, I think. I don't know how you'd otherwise get through it.
Not in 4 Sank, because Magic Ant scaled to endgame.
It's scaled somewhere after Geigus. It's not always endgame.
But I felt that just going for Shield Sigma was the most efficient way, and it wasn't that many levels.
Yeah, well, it paid off. So Pro Peace fell behind with just kind of unfortunate deaths in a lot of places. Took a death in Lilliput without saving and Happy. But also was catching up a lot because Pro Peace went for Repel Sandwiches and got quite a few of them, so all the dungeons started going by quicker.
That makes sense too. I just thought that because of how early the party came together, that levels were going to be important for the end game than they were. That's why I was fighting stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, personally, I always like to hold off all of my Sanctuaries until I have Paula for exactly that reason.
I also just got tripped up a couple of times in just trying to remember where the zombie paper was, because I remembered it was somewhere. I just couldn't remember quite where it was.
Yeah, there were a few places where I noticed both of you forgetting checks that you had open. Specifically, Trial of Nothingness, which, to be fair, we also forgot about until pretty deep into the seed over on
I
comms.
was I was pretty embarrassed that I forgot that one, and I was thinking as soon as I rolled up to that check, this is going to be Saturn Valley teleport destination. I'm going to get mega punished.
Oh, everyone, check out what happens if you forget to brush your teeth. Um, remember to brush your teeth,
I
folks.
I used every toothbrush I found,
Yeah, it's not really guaranteed to be fair.
but as long as you
Yeah,
use all of them that you get, that's fine.
As more than most people do, the following along with the meme has become less and less popular as people get more and more tryhardy.
I mean, I don't blame them. It was just this was also just a rough seed. There were some pretty unintuitive backtracks. Oh, and having to go through Stonehenge too. That was horrible.
Yeah, nobody likes seeing Stonehenge.
When I saw the eraser where it was, I knew that Stonehenge was probably going to be required, and it was. This was also just a long path too. I think one sub 120 on this seed is fine.
Mm. Um, yeah, we also have. I'm surprised you didn't pick abridged dungeons. Would have helped you out quite a bit.
I also want to apologize to Pro Piece for the premature done.
It was slightly ahead of PK Scramble standards.
Because what happened on the final prayer is Paula got solidified, and then as soon as her turn came up, I hit done by instinct because that's where timing ends at Ancient Cave,
Oh,
which
I see.
is and it's also where time ends in Vanilla is the final prayer.
Yeah, we actually used to use vanilla timing, but as we started adding a bunch of non-Gygas seeds, we just needed like a clear single place to do it, so we switched to that U1 message.
Okay, thanks for telling me that. I'll need to remember that if I pursue this more. But I love PK Scramble. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's a lot more accessible than Ancient Cave. Both randomizers are really good. Just I feel this one is a lot more accessible.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with that. I'm glad you enjoy the rando, by the way. Um, yes, I think it's generally agreed that PK Scramble is the more accessible of the two. It's very noob friendly. But I'll also say that Ancient Cave is, of all of the like super heavy entrance shufflers and like Ancient Cave style things, that is the best one that is out there across all games. Is really well done.
It is. It is because I've tried a few other ones as well. Um,
Yeah,
and
there's
just that one feels like it has the best balance. The skips are risk reward, but just overall, this seed, I didn't think it was too bad until after the third melody, it got kind of confusing.
yeah, definitely. I actually thought you were gonna end up with a choice of fourth or fifth sank being Bunny Cave and Milky Well, because I was looking like it was heading that direction.
That's what I was debating on as well. As I was wondering if I wanted to go what my fourth sanctuary was going to be because I was also looking out for fly honey for other things that gave me another sanctuary, especially with the level consideration. If I could have gotten into Dungeon 5, that probably would have saved me a bunch of time in grinding because I had to spend a few minutes grinding and it would
Hmm.
have avoided the death to Gygas too, which those hurt.
Oh, you actually had Fly Honey. It was on Meteorite Piece.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that kind of thing. I don't think I would have went through Belch Base just to get levels. It is like it does have Fobbies. Maybe that was the play.
There's also it's also just long and
Hmm.
I just felt the other sanctuary was more convenient.
Oh yeah, definitely. It would just be for levels at that point.
And
Um,
it's also you just never know where they are because that's just the nature of randomizer races. The only piece of information you get about where your opponent is when it's too late.
that is true.
yes, or if your opponent had to throw in the towel for whatever reason, be it
Mhm.
something technical happening or whatnot. All sorts of things could happen.
But that's an outlier situation. It's just hard to tell, especially because both of us are relatively new to the scene. So we don't have that experience of having done dozens and dozens of races before this. But thanks so much to Fiesel and the SNES Super Stars team for letting us race this. Hopefully,
Yeah,
it was a good watch.
Yeah, I'm very glad to get PK Scramble exposed on a big channel. People who mostly haven't seen it as well. So thank you for running this for us.
It's also relatively new, I think.
Yeah, it's been out for about a year and 3 months. So there are definitely
And
older randos.
you've put in a ton of work to make this so accessible. Just
Thank you.
big props. And hopefully my meme was a good meme.
You did a full-length game.
Yes, it certainly was. Because, well, I'll be honest, we've all been there. It's like, oops, I forgot my line. I actually was on stage once for a play in 7th grade, and I had a brain fart and forgot my line. So,
Oh no!
yes, it does happen.
Oh
Thankfully, I've never forgotten a line because I've always done improv.
no! All right. Well, with that, I think it's about time for the next run to start. Unfortunately, Pro Peace won't be joining us. Just I talked to him in race time chat, and he's a little bit frustrated. But
Yeah,
that's random.
Understandable.
it was a rough run. That's perfectly understandable. Well, thank you both for running for us, and thank you, Leslie Pro, for helping me commentate, and thank you, Fiesel, for having us on here.
This
Everyone in
was a
chat, don't
lot of
forget to...
fun. I'll be perfectly honest. It's always fun to be a part of the Earthbound Randomizers community. Being it running or commentating on is always a good time. So we would definitely love to have you. And speaking of Earthbound, there is one more Earthbound run on the schedule for this marathon, Pajama Percent.
Oh, that
Ooh.
run's cool.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to the people who run that. They're trying to figure out how to put the new equipment scramble glitch into the route somewhere. But
All
yeah,
right.
that's a
Well,
super fun glitch run, so check it out, everyone.
if I can't catch it live, if you can't catch it live, that is a VOD you'll definitely want to watch. Unfortunately, it is getting rather late, and I have to work the holiday, sadly,
Oof.
so I gotta bounce.
Yeah,
Thank you,
you
interview.
are not alone in that regard, because I also have to work. Even though while this was all going on, the Celtics advanced to the NBA Finals. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that it's Memorial Day tomorrow. I still got to work.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah, have a good one, everyone. And is there another race after this? Is that...
Yes, there is. I don't have the schedule up in front of me. However, there are a lot of great runs in this marathon. You're definitely going to want to stick around. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time.
Yeah, enjoy the rest
Enjoy
of the
the rest of the
marathon, everyone.
marathon,
Yeah.
folks. Fuzzy Pickles.